Oh man, just look at this. And some of these parts, when they look this good, it's almost a shame to mount them and you're not gonna be able to see them again unless you're underneath the car turning wrenches. And if you're not familiar with Cusco, they manufacture their stuff in Japan, so you get that cool serialized sticker on there, and you have the classic blue Cusco color, which is kind of goes with the theme of my Corolla hatchback. Now, a lot of this stuff, you can really see that the time that went into the craftsmanship on making this and finishing it off, so there are no sharp edges, the welds are nicely finished. I mean, this thing is just gorgeous. Now, the sway bar installation shouldn't take that long. Cusco claims about 2.5 hours, but the front sway bar is a little bit more involved than the rear sway bar, which is the reason why most people start with the rear, but I thought we would do something different and install the front one first. So let's go underneath the car and let's get this bad boy installed. I have lifted and secured the car and have removed the center plastic cover that covers this entire area. If you see my oil change video, you're familiar with this cover because I had to remove that center panel cover so I can access the oil filter. In this case, I have removed the entire cover to get full access to everything that's underneath here. Now, removing the cover only really involved removing these little plastic clips. The head of that clip pops out and then the entire clip can come out. There are an additional 4 10mm bolts towards the front that have to be removed, and once those bolts are removed, the entire plastic cover can come off. And here's the price. As we can see, this is the stabilizer bar, and it's pretty tucked in underneath this cross member, travels across and is connected on each side to the stabilizer bar via this little bolt. I'm going to disconnect the stabilizer bar by using this wrench, which is a 17mm, on this nut right here. Now, I have pre-loosened it a little, so it won't come out that easily, but it didn't take a lot of force, and I'm gonna disconnect both sides before moving on to the next step. Now that the bolt has been removed, this literally can just slide out like that. And at this point, I want to point out that the Cusco instructions are extremely detailed, a lot of great pictures. However, they're all in Japanese, and unfortunately I can't read Japanese as much as I would like to, but I do have a good friend who can read and translate Japanese, and that friend's name is Google. So I got my translations on here, so that's how I'm installing this, by following their instructions. And let me show you what's going on underneath the car. At this point, the Cusco instructions call out for the removal of this bar right here and the identical bar on the other side. And I don't have to remove the entire cover, I just remove enough clips and one screw to allow the cover to be able to pull down like this, so I have access now to those 2 bolts right there and these 2 bolts right here. Now those bolts are 14mm, which I'm gonna get out right now, and then this whole brace will come off. Oh yeah! Here comes the brace. Okay, that was 4 bolts, 2 in the front, 2 in the rear. Now I'm gonna do the same thing for the brace on the opposite side. I'm gonna remove the bolts that hold the steering rack in place, and that is this bolt right here and this bolt right here. There is a nut on the top. Let me show you a better angle what that looks like. And there is the bolt, and it goes through, and there is the nut. Now the bolt and the nut are 19mm in size, so I'm gonna place a wrench up here to hold it while I turn it in the bottom with this breaker bar until it breaks loose. And it didn't take very long to get this guy out. It's gonna be a pretty long bolt. Oh, look at that. Now I'm just gonna repeat that process for the other side. Same thing, there's the nut and there's the bolt. This is completely loose. Yeah, woohoo! Love this stuff. Next, I'm gonna remove this 10mm bolt that secures the O2 harness. And it's out, and that's just gonna keep the harness from stretching as the subframe comes down, because the entire subframe has to be moved about 100mm lower so I can get the bar out. Now 100mm is roughly 4 inches. I don't think we're gonna have to go that far, but let's see what it takes. And next we have this massive 22mm bolt. Let's see if we can get this guy out. Now I pre-loosened it with the breaker bar. And I'm ready to drop the cross member out, so I'm gonna put a jack to support that. But I wanted to show you the bolts before I put the jack right now that is quite visible. There is one bolt right here. There is another bolt right here. Both of them are 19 millimeters. And the other two bolts are to the front. I'm gonna go through that hole in the A-arm and it's right there. Now there's one on each side, and same thing. Both of these bolts are 19 millimeters, and that should loosen up the frame enough for me to be able to bring it down. And I have the cross member supported by the jack. Now I do have a piece of lumber the way I would do it if I was supporting the engine by the oil pan. And some people may argue that not having that piece of wood may be safer, as anytime you put things in between the jack and the car, things can slip out and then we will have a problem. But this feels pretty solid. I feel pretty confident. I'm not gonna be underneath, and I'm gonna begin to loosen up the bolts carefully from the outside. And the first bolt is loose. Wasn't too hard. Use the breaker bar. Power tools do help a lot and always make the job easier. Jeez, how massive this is. Now that all 4 bolts have been removed, I slowly, very carefully lower the subframe. As you can see, it has come down probably a few inches. You can probably see it better here, right here. You see where the mount used to be up here. Now it's below here. Now there is a lot more space now for me to be able to work in this area. And this is a great view of the bracket that holds the stabilizer bar. It is only held with 2 14 millimeter bolts. Once the bolts are loosened up, the bracket, which looks like the letter U, can come out. Now at this point, I'm gonna repeat this from the other side. Now that the bracket on the other side has been removed, this entire thing is loose, and I can begin to play with this until I can slide it out. Now the instructions say to slide it towards the back and then it should pop out. We'll see if it's true. And it is true. It looks like it comes out by moving the sway bar towards the rear, and this steering rack goes up. Because it's loose, I can push it up, and then this sway bar slides underneath the steering rack, and that gives it clearance to go towards the back and then be able to pull it out. Now I'm on the driver's side, but I suspect this will work the same on the passenger side. So I'm gonna keep pulling this out until I get this bad boy out. This is a great view of how the bar came out. It's coming out this way. And if I keep going, there it is. Now I had to go out that way because of that shape. So I'm gonna put the new bar in the exact same way, and that's the way that the instructions call out for this to be done, for the installation to be done in the reverse of the removal. So I'm gonna take the new bar and slide it into that same orientation. But first, let's compare the bars. And let's look at the bars side by side. First off, we see that the OM1, not very attractive, very utilitarian. We have that beautiful Cusco bar right here. And let's talk about the differences. First off, I measured this one and it measures about 26 millimeters. Now this one measures 28 millimeters, and you might say that's not much, but you know, when it comes to diameters, 2 millimeters is quite a bit. Now the main thing to notice is the hump right here. So this is the side that's gonna go to the passenger side. This is the side that's gonna go to the driver's side. Now I'm not sure if all the Corolla hatchbacks are gonna have this, but mine happens to have a purple dot on here, and that purple dot is on the side that goes to the passenger side. One important part of putting this back together is using silicone grease internally here to lube up the bushing. So I'm gonna apply it over the bushing, inside of the bushing, before I apply this to the new bar, and that's gonna make sure that it's nicely lubricated. And one of the best things about the Cusco instructions is that they do include all the torque specs. So I'm gonna torque this, guys, and I'll put the torques on the bottom so you guys can see those. And I'm trying to torque this big bad boy, so obviously the torque on spec on this is a lot higher. Same with this guy. I'm gonna torque it by coming from the bottom, and I'm gonna torque this guy like so. Now this is not ideal to torque with an extension, and there's all kinds of formulas to compensate for that, but I'm not building a rocket ship, so this should be more than enough. And the volt for the O2 sensor doesn't need a lot of torque. And now I'm gonna torque the steering rack, and that takes 2 bolts, one right here, one right here. Remember, there's a nut on top of that bolt, and here we go. And now onto the center mount. Gotta torque that guy as well. Here we go. Man, and look how nice that looks. Well, let's torque the nut that secures the stabilizer bar. And now lastly, to torque these 4 bolts that secure this brace. Here's the other 2. And remember, all of this is happening not only on this side, but I'm duplicating the same thing on the other side. And now that everything's secure and torqued, now it's just a matter of reinstalling this big cover with all the little clips. And it's kind of a shame because that blue bar looks so good. I'm gonna miss seeing it, but let's get this thing closed up. And I'm now driving with the front Cusco sway bar installed, and I can tell you that the ride did not get harsh at all. In fact, there is no noticeable increased harshness, and that is because sway bars do not typically affect the harshness of your ride like lower-end springs do. And what you will get is the additional performance when the car is under load. Whenever the car is being subjected to a hard turn, now the sway bar is going to be able to keep both of the tires planted on the road. But before I get crazy testing the front sway bar, I really need to get the matching rear sway bar so I can actually get an accurate feeling of how the car is behaved. Remember that these sway bar setups are developed jointly, so a manufacturer like Cusco has fine-tuned both of them as a set. So right now the front is super accurate and dead set of going in the direction that I want it to go. The rear, the factory one, we know it's a hollow tube, so it's not gonna provide much in terms of direction. However, having only installed the front one doesn't seem to have affected at all the normal day-to-day driving. I got on the freeway just fine. I've been taking plenty of turns just fine. I can feel that the car is ready to turn more. So there is a decrease in understeer, and I can feel more that there's a little bit more bias to oversteer, which is gonna be great for the track. So I can't wait to get the rear sway bar installed. And remember, I put a link in the description down below if you guys wanna look at the sway bar further. And if you guys found any part of this video helpful, please hit the thumbs up button to support the channel, and stay tuned for that rear sway bar video where we're gonna have some serious fun with the car. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Okay, we'll have just a little bit of fun.